Good morning, everyone, from the heartland of America in Ames, Iowa. Good morning for you guys. It's past midnight here.
Yeah.
So on the behalf of IT Kanpur Alumni Association, welcome to the SMC's keynote panel session. I'm Ratnesh Kumar, 87 batch, currently with electrical and computer engineering at Iowa State University, and the current vice president of the Alumni Association. So we have a panel of a spectacular group of alum leaders and entrepreneurs. Dr. Subrata Mitra, he's a general partner at Accel. He's of 88 batch and also a IIT Kanpur distinguished alum. Then we have Rashi Jan. She's the co-founder and CEO of Onco.com. She's of 2009 batch. Srinivas, co-founder and CEO of Mobile Premier League from 20. And Varun Khaitan, co-founder of Urban Company of the 2009 batch as well. This session will begin with the keynote address of Dr. Subrata Mitra, which will be followed by a session that he will moderate himself along with the other panelists that we just named. So to get started and do the introduction of Subrata and subsequent to his keynote address, I will then introduce the other three panelists. So with that brief background on how this panel is going to be run for next 45 minutes or so, it is my great pleasure and really an honor to introduce our keynote speaker and a dear friend, Dr. Subrata Mitra, an entrepreneur turned VC who has been a general partner at Accel since 2008, when the Erasmic Venture Fund, a firm that he co-founded, merged into Accel. Subrata was the first investor in AirMeet, Casa One, CureFit, Flipkart, later acquired by Walmart, JustPay, Moglix, MoneyView, Mu Sigma, Mitra, also acquired by Flipkart. Skipbox, Virident, acquired by Western Digital, Wibmo, acquired by PayU, and several other category leaders. Subrata studied computer sciences at IIT Kanpur and subsequently received his MS from University of Delaware and PhD from University of Illinois at Urbana. He has been named in Forbes Midas list of top 100 global investors twice, and currently he is the only investor from India to be on that list. What an honor. He's also a distinguished alumni of IIT Kanpur. Welcome, Subrata. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Ratnesh. It's obviously a mixture of emotions when you come and talk to people at IIT Kanpur. And it's actually wonderful that you are introducing me. I remember we used to run around and play soccer together back in those days when neither of us had any worries. But it's been like few decades since, and it's wonderful to be able to reconnect. I think I last met you at Texas Austin when you were a PhD student there, and I was visiting from Delaware. But strange are these circumstances that we are sitting under COVID situation and we are talking to each other on this telecommunication channels. Thank you, and it's a great honor and pleasure to be here. First of all, I would request everybody around the globe and all our alumni to treat this COVID situation very seriously, especially those that are in India. We are getting overwhelmed by the number of cases that are showing up at our doorsteps. Every apartment, I live in an apartment complex of about 350 apartments. I think there are 20 active apartments right now. And it must be the case everywhere. Not a single hospital bed to be found in Bangalore over the last 3-4 days. So really grim situation. And I think we are really, really privileged that while that is going on in the world, we could actually take time to honor each other and talk to each other on this kind of a panel. So I really thank my stars that I'm on this side of the fence and I'm kind of having this opportunity to address you guys. A little bit about myself, started like most of the people probably at IIT, grew up in Kolkata for the first 18 years, came to IIT Kanpur, did all the crazy things that you guys have done, including at the drop of a hat, taking a bike and running off to Lucknow because some friend wanted to meet somebody else and then he didn't want to, go alone or something like that. And all the crazy stuff till you graduate, and then you really figure out what real life is all about, right? So this is this 4 years of almost living in denial that there is actually a reality at the end of all this. But fortunately for me, I shipped off to the US and spent 6 more years in graduate school, which is also a lot of fun. Illinois was a lot of cold, but a lot of fun in terms of meeting new friends. And, actually I saw the first web browser back in those days. I think a lot of the guys here may not have been born at that time. Netscape being created by people that actually used to sit next to me in class. And that kind of motivated me later on to become an entrepreneur. I actually turned and went off to work for IBM for a little bit, for 4 years, and then had this call to come back to India. Probably the most important call of my life that I've ever made. It was largely kind of forced on me by my wife because she was getting bored in the US. And she kind of told me that, let's just go back to India. We'll probably, be closer to family and do good stuff there. So we decided to do that in '98, and since then I've actually lived in India all along, though I keep traveling everywhere fairly frequently. But it's been absolutely phenomenal life and journey with Erasmic, Accel, and so forth. So I couldn't have written the script better if I had to do it myself. So that such has been my kind of history and experiences. And just to give you a small example, the other 3 people sitting on this panel are so accomplished and so good in what they do. And we have had the fortune, at least in 2 of these 3 cases, to be their partners right from the word go. So with that, what I'll do is I'll move to the next slide, Ratnesh. So here, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Accel before we introduce the other 3 speakers. So Accel, some of you might already know, we are an early stage investor. In fact, the smallest check we have written is $100,000, and the largest we have written single check is about $20-some million. So we kind of straddle across multiple categories of companies, but we really love early stage. So 80% of the companies that we have invested, we are the first investors. We are very active, and the 2 of you that work with us, and some of the others may have heard about it. So we try to work with these early stage companies to help them with their product market fit in the initial days, and then help them scale by figuring out and how to help them kind of hire the best talent, as well as help them understand and work through the details of the strategies that might be successful for a given company. We are a global brand. We are in 3 continents. So our mothership is in Silicon Valley. We are also in UK, from where we actually have invested in a lot of companies in Europe. And then in Asia, which is basically run out of Bangalore. We used to be in China, which we have folded back, but at some point we'll probably be back there again. Venture capital is actually depending on how much you know about it, could be a misnomer. In our case, it's about company building. So like I said, we come in very early, and usually, so let's say so far the India part of the fund, our biggest exit has been Flipkart. We have been invested since 2008, so this is now the 13th year. We still actually have a small ownership, even after Walmart acquired most of the company. So 13 years in, obviously the best investment so far, and we are very proud of it, but that's kind of the length of time that we spend with our companies. And in terms of what we do, I'll talk about 5 of the sectors later, but we love to kind of think through what we want to invest in. For example, very early on, we had decided that we'll not make investments in anything to do with ad-driven models. So even now, we actually have not been able to get into that. But we are slowly looking at those areas. But what I wanted to kind of explain in this slide is we actually have a few areas that we have thought through and we have kind of built thesis around, and we actually love to make lots of investment in those areas. Next slide, please, Ratnesh. So here is a sample portfolio. I've actually taken the liberty to pick a few companies from our global portfolio as well. You see right at the middle, Dropbox and Slack are classical examples of companies that our US fund has done, where we are also investors because it's a global partnership, but really these are global companies. And then some of these other names you'll probably recognize, Swiggy and Flipkart. Today we are going to talk to Onco, a company called Portia, Ninja Cards, Zetworks. These are all the local companies here. Accel, like I said, has been around for a very long period of time. Our first investment was made in 1983 out of Silicon Valley, so 30 plus years of experience. And we have been actually managing about a 20 billion current asset under management, of which about $1.5 billion is earmarked for India. So all of these companies that you see, plus the rest of the portfolio in India, we have actually invested about $1 billion, and about $500 million is what we call dry powder. So that's the money that is waiting to be invested in new companies. We have, in the India part of the fund, we have maybe about 110 active investments, and globally about 400. And then we have been part of the journey of these 125 or so unicorns. A unicorn, by definition, is a company that is worth about $1 billion. Next slide, please, Ratnesh. So now I'll take a little bit of time to talk about what's happening in the ecosystem and why it's actually a great time for most people with the kind of background that we have to start thinking about entrepreneurship. Next slide, please. I have been associated with the venture capital industry since 2005, actually, and at Accel since 2008. And in that period of time, so let's say 2008 to 2021, we have seen all of these companies sort of mushroom in India in front of our eyes. And some of those, so Freshworks today has maybe a $350 million of revenue. Book My Show, I think, is a household name. Flipkart is a household name. So is Ola, Paytm, and Oyo, right? So, but these are all slightly older companies. So they were probably, started either 7 to 10 years ago or slightly longer than that in some cases. On the right-hand side, we have tried to project, as we look into the future, the next 7, 8, 10 years, how things might change. So obviously almost everybody in India will probably own a mobile phone and therefore get connected. That solves for the access problem. So anyone who has any amount of disposable time or money would actually use this nice little nifty device to get access to ways to either entertain themselves or solve some healthcare issues, or get connected to somebody else and ask for advice, or so on and so forth, right? So all of that will get encompassed through these mobile devices that are already very, very prevalent. But every year and a half, that's sort of the replacement cycle of mobiles today. A better, bigger, faster mobile comes handy to all the consumers, and 900 million of those will be kind of running around with these devices. And we have just given you a spattering of some of the companies, and a lot of these are companies at Accel that we have partnered with. And these are some of the giants of their own industry. And you just get a sense that how quickly and rapidly this ecosystem is evolving. Next slide, please. Here is the other part of what makes India very special. Even when we worked in the US, there's nothing there equivalent to what we have here as Aadhaar, right? 1.2 billion people using this system, which has been homegrown over a period of time. Equally amazing is UPI, which is at the top right corner. Today, when we make payments to each other, it is instantaneous and it is for free, right? So NPCI, which is the sort of the mothership behind UPI, actually thought through this kind of a payment mechanism. And I'm proud to tell you that one of my companies called JustPay was actually the first implementer of this app called Bheem, which the Prime Minister launched just after demonetization. And from there on, obviously now Google Pay and Phone Pay and some of these other companies that you know of, they have actually taken on and created a huge opportunity, access, and business around UPI. 500, 600 million smartphones, and then some of these numbers in the middle are actually very, very interesting. So 61% of the population below the age of 35, which is what we call a young population. So these are people who can now come into the workforce and actually create, either businesses or can work for businesses. There are probably more than 1 million entrepreneurs in India, probably like 10 million. These are not accounted because these are some of these companies are not even sort of registered companies. But all of this can change with the advent of these digital rails that I'm talking about out here, and the mobile and cloud technologies that all our companies are now coming up with. The other interesting piece of information is this 11% household debt, which is compared to the GDP of the country, which is one of the smallest in India, smallest in the world. A lot of the other countries, let's say China and US, they have been able to leverage the assets to create much faster growth by creating slightly higher amount of household debt. And that's a technique. I think this number 11 was actually much smaller a few years ago. So we are down that path, but it is still small enough that a lot can be done here. So all of this, the summary of it is that, we talked about how companies are accelerating. Now we are talking about some of the digital rails that got built. And then we'll go to the next slide. And here is, again, a spattering of some of the companies that have actually made it. So most of these companies are actually worth $1 billion or more. So they are unicorns. And I have, kind of put them into 5 buckets because these are the 5 that we track at Accel. There are a few other things that we don't. So for example, clean energy, and let's say there are a few other sectors that we haven't really deeply invested into, but these are the 5 that we tracked. And these are the categories I was talking about in the beginning when we talked about the prepared mind and the thesis-led approach. So for example, you'll probably know most of these names, so column 1 is Flipkart, Ola, Dream11, Swiggy, Urban Clap, and MPL, 2 of these companies you'll talk to today. Healthcare, for example, the last column has Pharmacy, CureFit, 1mg, Practo, Pristine, and Onco. Again, Onco you're going to talk to today. Fintech, we've gone up by leaps and bounds. I talked about UPI, so Paytm, PhonePe are 2 of the biggest users of UPI. Razorpay is actually a payment gateway company, and it has done really, really well. Cred, you guys probably get hit by their ads every day. Nobody in India doesn't know Kunal Shah. Grow is actually rapidly growing. I think they have a IIT Kanpur alumnus there as well. Digit is a digital insurance company, and so on and so forth. So it just gives you a sense of how much has already happened. And if you assume that we are going to now grow from 3 trillion to a 5 and 6 and 7 trillion economy over the next 5 to 10 years, just imagine how much more can happen. And I'll give you a few anecdotes. The first check into Flipkart I had put was in 2008, and the founders were like one of them, Sachin Bansal, was 27 years old, and Binny Bansal was 26 years old. And they were amazing people. They were actually looking for an opportunity for somebody to partner with them. And it was our pleasure, to be able to do that and work with them for the first, year or 2 before some of the bigger investors started coming in. In Ola, we have an indirect investment. We were actually investors in a company called Taxi for Sure, which got acquired by Ola. But between the time it got acquired and now, Ola has grown probably 5 to 6x. So it just tells you, and Ola Bhavesh is probably one of the youngest entrepreneurs. He started right from college, from IIT Bombay, and just tells you that there is really no age to get started, right? And that's sort of in the next slide. Next slide, please, Ratnesh. Oh, sorry, before I get there, here is a sort of a spattering of some of the investors. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So Accel is us, and then you'll hear about Bloom, Chirate, Elevation. Elevation used to be called something else before. Lightspeed, Nexus, let's say Sequoia. Some of these are early stage investors, and then SoftBank, StepView, Tiger Global are the later stage investors. But here is, this is just probably 5% of the money that has come into India, or maybe 10%. But really, it just gives you a sense that there is a lot of venture money which is now geared towards India. So we talked about large companies having been created, multiple categories having opened up, digital rails being ready, investment is around, and therefore, in the next slide, this is the appeal that I want to make to all of you, Ratnesh. There has really never been a better time to get started on a company. If you think it is too overwhelming, go talk to some of the entrepreneurs that maybe these 3 people that you're going to meet today, or some of these early stage people who have just started or been a year into the journey, or come and talk to us at Accel or one of the venture capital firms. It will be an honor and a pleasure to see more IIT Kanpur alumnus become successful over the next years to come. Thanks, Ratnesh. Over to you.
You're on mute, Ratnesh.
Yeah, thanks, Subrata, for such an illuminating keynote presentation. Thanks for taking the time. What an amazing journey you have had. It looks like IIT Kanpur did its job well in preparing us, so we could have had this kind of training.
Absolutely.
You have good memory. You remember our connection from meeting from graduate school days in Texas. We may have also met once or twice in Illinois when you were there. So that may be other things, but we have to catch up a lot. It's been a while, but
yes.
Yeah. So next up, we have this panel discussion, which will be moderated by Dr. Mitra himself. And now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce all the 3 esteemed panelists. So the first one I'm going to introduce is Rashi Jan. She is the co-founder and CEO of Onco.com. She graduated from IIT Kanpur in 2009, majoring in biological science and bioengineering. She also holds an MBA from the Wharton School at UPenn with a major in healthcare management. She started her career as a healthcare analyst with JP Morgan, covering biotech stocks, developing cutting-edge cancer therapies. Post that, Rashi joined Biocon and led the launch of the first FDA-approved breast cancer biosimilar drug. After working with a couple of health tech startups in the Bay Area during her MBA at Wharton, she returned to India in 2016 to found Onco.com. Today, her company, Onco.com, is the largest cancer care platform in India and has served more than 100,000 patients in getting the right treatment guidance and providing end-to-end care management to cancer patients. So welcome, Rashi. Next, I will introduce is Sai Srinivas. Sai Srinivas is the co-founder and CEO of the Mobile Premier League, which is Asia's largest esports and skill gaming platform. Another amazing thing. He co-founded Mobile Premier League in 2018 along with Shubham Malhotra, with whom he had earlier co-founded a hardware streaming company called TV. Srinivas is a 2010 batch alum of IIT Kanpur, and he began his tryst with gaming at Zynga in Bangalore. As the CEO of the Mobile Premier League, Srinivas pays special attention to taking esports to the masses, and he originally hails from Hyderabad. And the third panelist that I'm going to introduce is Varun Khaitan. Varun is co-founder at Urban Company. This company started in 2014 together with Abhiraj and Raghav. And now Urban Company is Asia's largest at-home services marketplace, present across 30 cities in India and 4 international countries, UAE, Australia, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia. Using the Urban Company app, consumers can book services at home, ranging from haircuts. So I need one of those, beauty treatments, massages, to handyman, appliance repairs, home painting, and so on. The company is trusted by 5 million customers globally for their needs and provides livelihood to 40,000 service professionals whom they call partners. Prior to founding Urban Company, Varun worked at Qualcomm R&D in California and was a consultant with the Boston Consulting Group, where he advised Fortune 500 companies across US, Europe, and India. He completed his BTech from Kanpur in 2010. So with that introduction of the 3 panelists, let's welcome all the esteemed panelists, and let me then invite Subrata back to lead the next set of discussions among the panelists.
Thanks, Ratnesh. Hey guys, great to connect. Sai, we have never met, but this is the best we could do given the circumstances.
No
So
problem.
I think we missed investing in your company. We should probably try to undo that at some point.
Sure. I love that. Sure.
All right. So let me start, and we'll slowly get warmed up. And if you guys want to ask me something, just feel free as well. We should just do an open conversation. So maybe the first question to all 3 of you, maybe Rashie can go first, is what got you to become an entrepreneur?
Hi, Subrata. Thanks
Hi.
for being on the panel, Ratnesh. Subrata, I didn't start my company until 6 years of outside of IITK. I was actually working in a corporate setting. And what I realized was that my learning curve was limited. And I had seen a lot of friends and family members become entrepreneurs. And one thing that really fascinated me was the exponential learning curve I could get. And I felt that right after business school, I felt that the next 10 years, I wanted to be in a career that will give me an ability to get exposed to multiple skill sets, to problems that I honestly would find it difficult to have solutions for, but would find it challenging enough to pursue. And I felt that, whether or not I succeed as an entrepreneur, in that 5-6 years of stint that I'll have, I would come out learning a lot more than I would have if I would have stayed back in a corporate setting. So that was my main motivation to take the plunge and become an entrepreneur. And also I was a student just before that, and I felt that as a founder, you have to live a life of frugality, and it's best to extend that right after student life. Once I go back to working, it will be very hard. So I decided to take the plunge.
Okay, so we'll ask the other 2 gentlemen, how they managed to do it after work. Sai?
Yeah. So I think for me, I was studying aerospace engineering in Kanpur, right? And I think I was very clear that that is something that's not going to work for me, right? I think in college itself, I had started a company with Rachit, who is 1 year junior to me, who also happens to be leading product design at MPL today. And the one thing I was very clear was that I wanted to be a product manager out of college. And right out of college, I think in my batch, I was very lucky to be. I was very lucky that I was the only guy who ended up becoming a product manager. Which is back in the day in 2011, that was a very uncommon profession. But if you look at it today, it's actually a very common profession, right? So many people take up product management. So I was very lucky to have had the opportunity to learn about internet products very early. Then happened to work at Zynga. It's probably the pioneer in freemium and free-to-play gaming in the world, which is something that everybody is so commonly using today. But Zynga pretty much pioneered that entire concept. So yeah, then after that started. I mean, honestly, I've not, the only job I've done was that 1.5 year stint at Zynga. If not, I've practically been in one format or the other with either founding companies or being a part of an early company. So yeah, I think I generally enjoy that. I enjoy that chaos and a little bit of that's the thing about building your own internet or your own product that can reach out to millions and millions of customers.
Oh, fantastic. Varun?
Hey everyone, Subrata, thank you for this opportunity. I have to firstly thank IIT where I am. Today, born to family and community of small business owners. I was the first and so far the last person. So IIT Kanpur was the stage which just showed me what the world is about and taught me how to invent. My first, as a result, was straight in Southern California in the Qualcomm. 1 year in, I had patents to my name, lots of interesting inventions, and it was a dream come true from the outside. From the inside, there was actually a and I felt I was inventing things, but they were, really experimental. Like a shoemaker making new shoes, which is great, but isn't really for the better. So the question I started asking myself that disturbed me a lot is, what should my life and my work really be about that will make me as an individual from the inside really happy and satisfied, and that really led to the desire to invent things that will really make a difference and make an impact in the lives of millions of people. And very quickly that thought occupied me fully and pushed me to move from being an entrepreneur to come back to India and move the country forward in the right direction. And, the rest is really the story of Urban Company.
Yeah. No, so that's phenomenal. All of you are more thought through than I ever was at your age. So my reason to becoming an entrepreneur is actually almost serendipity. I was working for IBM in Silicon Valley, and IBM was starting their first lab in India. I don't know if you guys know, this was set up inside IIT Delhi. And I was supposed to be the first employee to move back with IBM. And my manager, who somebody I knew, I don't want to name him, had sort of told me, whatever you do, you should come and work for me. And I said, yes. I mean, I was a young guy, and going back to India with IBM would be an honor. But thanks to India government, the license for setting this up kept getting pushed out. And I had promised my wife that on Jan 1, 1998, we would actually move to India. So we were sitting in Bangalore, actually at that time in Bombay, and this thing was getting pushed out by a month at a time. And at some point I said, this is not going to work out. And on the side, just like everybody else, IITians, we always have ideas, right? So we were kicking out around these two ideas with a friend. And then the friend said, what? I want to move back to India as well. So that's what sort of triggered me to become an entrepreneur. Had IBM come on the right date, I would not be talking to you guys today. But let's go to the next question. Why did you pick these spaces? So maybe we'll start with Sai this time.
Yeah. So the reason why I picked this space is because Even in college, I was an avid gamer. Even though that was something that probably didn't help my academics too much, but I was an avid gamer. And I think the world for 4 years down the line, I think what's going to happen is that you're going to see massive global tournaments. I'm talking about tournaments where there are 1 million or 2 million people competing online, where a player from America is competing with a player from India, is competing with a player from Brazil. And there's this opportunity in front of us for once for an Indian company to actually build a product which can be used globally, right? I mean, very rarely do you see consumer products from India going out, right? And for once, it also fit very well into my subject matter expertise, which is gaming and product management for gaming, right? And I think all of these three things came together. And like you said, UPI happened in India at the right time, right? If I had started MPL, say, in 2011 or 2012 or 2013, I don't think we'd be successful. I think we'd probably be languishing with 5,000 or 6,000 users in some niche area, right? I think a lot of the credit goes to the surroundings, and that's the reason why we started gaming. And the other beautiful thing about gaming just is that games have no language, right? For example, you and another person sitting in another country who wouldn't even know what you speak can still be playing the same game. You can't say that about anything else. You can't say that about lectures. You can't say that about textbooks. You can't say that about movies. So
Ratnesh is smiling now when you talked about lectures.
I think in fact to be honest, a lot of this probably was thanks to what Varun was saying, right? A lot of it is thanks to what I had experienced back in IIT Kanpur, right? What internet speeds are very common today in India, where there in IIT Kanpur back in 2007, 2008, 2010. So what IIT Kanpur basically gave you was a glimpse of the future, that this is how the world's moving.
I'll tell you about internet speeds at my time, but let Varun address the question first.
Yeah. So that's why.
No, fantastic. Thank you. Varun, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, the reason to build Urban Company really continues from my previous answer to India late 2013. Tried my hand at the first idea that terrible failure 2 months later. So me and co-founders, we were without a job, without an idea, sitting in Delhi and trying to wonder what next. And
in that three people office that Abhinav talks about, right?
That was a few months later. That was
Okay, got it. Right.
But after a week of drinking, we thought, let's start again, because entrepreneurship is one of the things where you're not really out bowled the first time. You can keep taking hits as many times as you want. So this time we thought, let's just ask the people of India, what is can we build, and literally spend the next almost 7 to 8 months roaming around the streets, people doing lots of interactions with friends, family, relatives, consumers online, and we would keep pitching them these cool futuristic apps. What if we built X for you? What if we built Y for you? But every conversation would end with people, ये सब तो ठीक है, but like वो मैं plumber ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रहा था last week, and that took me a whole week, and I couldn't do anything else, and I got scolded from my wife, and it was literally a nightmare to get so many different service needs fulfilled. And we would keep avoiding these conversations and say, वो सब तो ठीक है, but like, can we build something cool for you? And then after a few months, wait a minute, what is going on? Like, we are ignoring what is so large and so obvious right in front of us, and is plaguing almost every individual we speak to in some form. And as we went deep into the services industry, we fell in love with it, because we realized how big a part it plays in the life of every Indian household, how broken the whole experience is, and leaves consumers unhappy most of the times about how you spent your money. And we realized millions of individuals are today employed in the services space. More are going to get employed going forward. Just of the opportunity and the impact that we could.
Yeah.
Made us more and more infatuated over time.
Got it. Good. Rashi, this is a phenomenally impactful company. Please tell us what got you there.
So, Subrata, I knew that I wanted to build something in healthcare. I had spent my entire career in healthcare. But the reason behind founding Onco was actually a personal reason. So I had seen my father-in-law get diagnosed with cancer a few years ago. And as a family, the struggle that we went through was unreal. Just knowing what to expect next, we never got those answers. And although we were connected to some of the best doctors in the country, our experience was broken as a patient, as a caregiver. And there was this innate sense of helplessness of not getting the answers, not knowing whether this treatment will work. We never got that. And that led me thinking that, when it comes to healthcare delivery for a complex disease like cancer, we are essentially living in a pre-internet era, right? Like the way we get care today is the same way our grandparents used to get care, which is that you just go to one doctor inside a hospital and put your fate in the hands of that one doctor and hope for the best, pray for the best. And, I had seen how technology aggregators had transformed industries like retail, travel, put consumer at the center. But when it came to something as complex as cancer, or for that matter, any complex disease in healthcare, patient was the last beneficiary of his own healthcare. And we wanted to solve that. We knew that this is the traditional setup that we have will never work for the patient. We can actually use technology to put consumer at the center and solve for information asymmetry. So that is how the journey started. And me and my co-founder, we had this hypothesis that, if we could essentially build a virtual cancer hospital where we could build an ecosystem of some of the best experts, specialists, service providers, and centrally solve for information gap that exists by giving customers, patients, and caregivers access to the right information on their treatment, we could essentially give them the ability to plan their treatment. And that's exactly what we ended up building. And one important thing that we realized along the way was that apart from just getting connected to the right specialists, there was this one very big unmet need. That need was that of lack of handholding. Patients never knew what to do once they had met their doctor and come back home, and they would have side effects and they would have complications, and they just couldn't get in touch with their doctor over WhatsApp. That is what they would ideally want, that, hey, my oncologist is on call for me, but that never happened. So we built an online care management platform with a team of in-house care managers who can handhold the patient through his or her treatment journey, be that one contact point, and give them access to the entire ecosystem whenever they need it. So I think the motivation behind doing something as complex as cancer started from my own personal experience and knowing that, consumers, this experience is massively broken, and we can use technology to solve for a lot of these aspects.
Yes. Thanks. Actually, all three of these are phenomenal stories, and unfortunately, we are a little bit short on time already. Ratnesh, how much we have? Like 10 minutes? You're on mute.
Yeah, I think we have some, some slack between this session and the next one. So sure.
Okay, so then we'll continue. Maybe we'll start with Varun first. Really, something that you talked about, right, just now, which is listening to the customers, right? How do you kind of figure out by listening to the customers what they want? Maybe a little bit of what are some of the challenges that you faced in the journey, right? So maybe we'll start with you, and then we'll go the other way.
Sure, Subrata. I would talk maybe a little bit about challenges on the business side for a bit, and then go on the personal side. So, like I said, we figured getting access to good quality, affordable, assured services in India was a huge problem, and we were constantly hearing from people, as we from our own experiences, that service professionals in India are unprofessional. They're always late, they're always cheating you, they're always doing bad work. But this just did not make sense to us internally. Like, why would that be? And as we spend more time with service professionals, we realized all of them in India, living in big cities, having families, still get paid only 10, 12, 15,000 rupees a month. And the whole industry itself was broken and controlled by middlemen. So someone doing 1 lakh rupees worth of work was only making 10,000 rupees because everything else in the middle was being pocketed off by middlemen. And then realizing that and knowing that consumers want good services, so if we can change the industry, then there would certainly be a good business to make, gave us the conviction to plunge in and really take some very difficult steps to change this entire industry. We now run what we call a full stack model, where there are no middlemen. Individuals, beauticians, hairdressers, plumbers, therapists, they run their own small micro business on our platform. Today, there are 40,000 of them. But making this happen, of course, had a lot of challenge, needed us to do a lot of unprecedented steps, right from being convinced that a individual who's not educated can have a mobile phone and run their own business, to having people leave jobs and take the plunge to become entrepreneurs, setting up training centers. Today we run 130 of them. And that is not something you think of doing when you start a technology company, to run actual physical training centers, to giving loans to people who have zero credit history and are probably thought of by the banking system as most unreliable, giving them loans from your own balance sheet. So lots of things done which were unprecedented, which everyone else told us not to do, and were hard to have belief in. But I think all of that becomes easy if you know what the consumer really wants, and you believe that you can make things happen in the end for the service of the customer. So I think that was, I think, the big learning, and lots of challenges, of course, along the way. I think apart from that, didn't really have a lot of other challenges. I always had a supporting family, supporting investors, supporting team members, and the ecosystem in India is just phenomenal over the last 7 years. I think what you do realize is there's a lot of personal challenge. Like, you as an entrepreneur have to reinvent your own self pretty much every 3 to 4 months. And that's challenging, but that's also the fun part of it. So I think remembering that the journey is the reward is really important here.
Yeah, no, fantastic quote here. Journey is the reward. Okay, great. Sai, I'll go to you next.
I think in all honesty, the MPL comparatively did not have a lot of challenges, but there were a lot of challenges in my previous company, and I'll talk more about that. Because MPL, we were very lucky, to be honest, to be at the right place at the right time. But with TV, which was a hardware company, it was incredibly tough, right? Practically every single person in India who we were speaking to was like, why are you guys doing this? Why are you building hardware, right? Why are you build hardware when you can do so much on software? And I think for us personally, we were more engineers at that time rather than people who understood what business meant, and we were just trying to build a product that we think was cool, or we think like the cool product that Varun was referring to in his thing, right?
First part, yeah.
Yes, exactly, right. But it was very, very tough, right? And I think we worked twice as hard in TV and than what we did at MPL, right? But I think the point which Varun makes about reinventing yourself and learning from your failures is very, very important, right? I think post TV, after exiting TV, I think a good 6-7 months for me and my co-founder Shubham was quite tough, to be honest, to kind of reconcile what happened, how did it happen, and then spending time to kind of put those learnings together, and then coming back together and launching another company. I think that was quite a tough thing. And if people can do that, I think it'll help them a lot, because the early failures, I think, kind of like really can change how you think about companies later on. I think one key learning that we took away from TV is that it's like the market is like a river. You always want to find a downstream river. If you're finding a market that's against you, irrespective of how good a team you have and how much work you do, you're gonna be tired in a bit, and you will flow down with the river, right? Which is the reason why when we started MPL, our first goal was to find a market and don't touch anything that's not digital, right? I think that we took that as two principles when we started MPL. But yeah, those are my key learnings. On a personal front, like Varun mentioned, I think a lot of it comes from just learning every 2-3 months of that, how you are compounding as an individual, right? I think your ability to stay ahead of everyone else is your ability to learn faster than everyone else. So that's, I fully agree with Varun on what he said there.
Great. So Rashie, 2 parts to the question for you. One is, what challenges you face, but even being a woman entrepreneur probably creates additional challenges. So if you want to talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure. So I'll start with the challenges we face on the business side. So we were trying to build a category creator business, and thinking of creating a marketplace. I remember in 2017 when we started building the team in Accel, it just backed us. We had no clue how do we build the supply aggregation, how do we get that going. Patient wanted the best. And we couldn't just partner with 2 or 3 clinics locally and a few oncologists and take that, fulfill the promise of giving them the best. And so the biggest challenge for us, and for the first 2 years of building Onco, was just convincing the fraternity, the oncology fraternity, to become our partners, to going after the best doctors in the country and giving them that pitch that we can. Please partner with us, and let's make this experience better for you. And at the same time, ensuring that we are being honest to our customer and able to add value to their lives. So I think that whole supply aggregation bit was the biggest challenge we faced. The things we did right was we hired people from the industry. We hired oncologists to come work with us full time. We got some early adopters in doctors, and we used their networks to attract many others. And always listen to our customer. I remember calling each of our customers individually in the first 6 months, asking them what we could do better. It was a big learning curve. Getting to product market fit took us some time. So I think that was the biggest challenges, one of the biggest challenges we face. And I think we're still very young. There are quite a few challenges that we continue to face even today as we scale the business. On the personal front, I think I get asked this question quite a lot. Have you faced any challenges being a woman entrepreneur? I think being an entrepreneur is hard, period. And I think Varun and Sai would agree with me. I mean, you never, it's everything is hard. Fundraising is hard. Hiring the right people when you don't have a lot of capital is hard. So I actually honestly didn't get a lot of time to think how life would have been easier if I was a man, to be honest. I think there were, one could argue that there is a little bit of bias in the system against women, but honestly, I did not experience it. We had some of the best investors from the very beginning. And I also feel that in our country, and I'm comparing it to my experience working in the US, I do feel in India, at least in the entrepreneur community, I feel that there's less discrimination against women. I think what matters more is your pedigree. And being from IIT really helped me. And I had a wonderful network of people as advisors as well. So did not yet face that many challenges. And honestly, ever I got that thought, I kind of thought that even if I would have been a man, this would have been a crazy problem to solve. So yeah, I think being an entrepreneur is hard. That's it.
Good. Thank you. Ratnesh, once again, time check.
So how are we doing or from your side as far as the number of questions?
I have a few more, but we can tune it based on how much time we have. But I did want to talk about internet speeds at our times. So maybe I'll close with that whenever we are ready.
Yeah, we have, I think, I guess a few minutes. We should wrap up because the next session starts at 12. So we're getting inching close to that.
Got it. No. So were there any viewer questions or anything you wanted to ask the panel?
Yeah, if there are any audience questions, we can take those.
Where do I see it? It's that Q&A.
Q&A, yes.
Urban company specific. Is there anything which is?
I'm looking.
No, these are all. So maybe. So what we'll do is maybe 30 seconds each on how tech driven your companies are. Maybe Rashie, you can start.
So I would say ours is a combination of services and tech. When we started scaling care management, we realized that the standardized experience we wanted to provide our customers did not exist. And so we created an internal care management tech platform that had all the engagement plans, all the interventions for different cancers mentioned, the knowledge base created in oncology. And that has allowed us to scale care management. So I would say it's still very services heavy, but the care management piece, we've now created a proprietary tech in-house, and it's very critical for us, for our operations to be standardized across customers.
Got it. Sai, you want to go next?
Sure. We have very little operations, or apart from customer service, I don't think we have any other operationally intensive piece. So in terms of the various tech vectors we touch, we have obviously the front-end engineering, we have back-end engineering. We have a very large machine learning team based out of Singapore and out of New York. We also have a really large art team, game design team, UI UX team. So pretty much all spectrums of non-operational work when it comes to our product.
Got it. Thanks. Varun?
Yeah. Really, urban company would not be possible if we did not have technology and mobile technology and mobile internet. It's probably one very big reason why a company like us does not exist in the US or most developed parts of the world, because mobile internet happened really at the same time everywhere. If you think about running a distributed operations service organization, 40,000 individuals serving more than 1 million customers a month, this is just not possible without technology, because everything from a consumer booking a service to finding the right service professional on demand to reach the customer's house, to getting the service done, the payment done. If you did all of this manually, it just becomes such an inefficient and expensive offline company that would not scale. And services is one area where productivity actually goes down with scale as opposed to going up with scale in every other industry. So that's one reason where everything in the company is technology driven and technology. We're also now entering an era where technology is making services more effective and not just efficient. So with COVID, every service professional uses machine learning to verify that they're wearing a mask, carrying a sanitizer, their temperature is normal, all the things which would not be possible without.
So yeah, I'll wrap up by talking about how we used to use internet back in the days. I don't know, Ratnesh, if you remember, I faced this challenge only in the final year because things were assumed to be largely offline in those days, so we never really tried very hard to reach out to others. But once we started, dissecting this thing called, how do you apply for scholarships abroad? So what we thought that it would be nice if we could actually interact with professors like Ratnesh, who are sitting on the other side, who are going to give us the scholarships, right? And that was an arduous process in IIT Kanpur, because our emails used to actually be, uploaded on floppy drives. In those days, 5.5-inch floppy drive, which, you guys probably don't know what those things look like, and would get shipped to Mumbai, because the ARPANET connection was not actually onto IIT Kanpur at that time. So IIT Bombay would actually upload those emails. So your ping, time instead of milliseconds are, tens of hours, right? So you will, if you are lucky, you get back a reply in 3 days. So we've indeed come a long, long way. Where I'm happy to say that I love my mobile device. I do all kinds of stuff on it, and thanks to you guys, it has become so much more productive than what we could have ever imagined. Ratnesh, back to you.
Yeah, what an amazing session. Talking about the technology. I was, of course, a double E, and you were a computer science person, so I was more into the hardware and microprocessors. At that time, we had this 8085. That was the state-of-the-art microprocessor. But those were the days. But in the interest of time, I would bring this session to a close. And really, on behalf of the ITK Alumni Association, truly thank Dr. Subrata Mitra, Rashi Jan, Srinivas, and Varun Khaitan for taking the time and sharing their wisdom, success stories, and in making the SMC, an inspiring and grand event.